Welcome, traveller of thought and heart. This is a story for the night, a story of roads and revelations, of footsteps written into eternity. As the world grows quiet and the air settles into rest, we turn our minds toward journeys that began long ago, when faith was not a word but a walk, when destiny unfolded step by step across dust and desert beneath stars that still shine tonight. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and listen. The same God who called men and women to walk into the unknown still calls the soul to follow. In the ancient city of Ur, where towers rose like spears toward the sky and the air shimmered with the smoke of idols, a man named Abram looked toward the horizon. The city was proud, filled with wealth, with music and trade, with the hum of markets that never slept. The moon god reigned in temples of stone, and the people worshipped what their hands had made. But somewhere beneath that noise, in a heart that had grown restless, a voice began to stir, not loud, not thunderous, but steady, as if eternity itself had leaned close. "Go," the voice said, "from your country, your kindred, and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." It was not a command wrapped in certainty. It was an invitation wrapped in mystery. No map was offered, no destination named. Only a promise, and a presence that felt larger than the stars. Abram stood at the edge of everything familiar, the walls of Ur behind him, the wilderness ahead. To obey meant to leave comfort for calling, to trade the known for the unseen, and yet something within him said yes. He gathered his flocks, his servants, his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all that he possessed. The city gates closed behind them, and the sound of the market faded into memory. The journey began not with triumph, but with silence, the kind of silence that holds its breath before destiny begins to move. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into months. The desert became a companion, the horizon a mirror of hope. Each morning he woke to the same question: where are we going? And each evening he slept beneath a sky that seemed to answer, where I lead. Faith was no longer belief, it was motion. Step after step he learned that obedience is not measured by clarity, but by trust. They passed through lands filled with strangers and languages he did not understand. The stars burned above, and in their quiet glow he felt the presence of the one who had spoken. Sometimes he doubted. Sometimes he looked back toward the lights of Ur, wondering if he had misunderstood. But the voice returned, not to explain, only to affirm, "I am with you." When they reached Canaan, the land spread wide and wild before him. Hills clothed in grass, valleys rich with promise. He built an altar there, gathering stones and laying them one by one, not to mark arrival, but to mark remembrance. The God who had called him was not confined to a temple or city. He met his people wherever faith stood still long enough to worship. Famine came. The promise did not vanish, but hunger pressed hard. Abram went down into Egypt, where the Nile flowed and the fields were green. Fear shadowed him there, fear for his life, fear that the plan had dissolved into confusion. But even in his missteps, the hidden hand of providence guarded him. Kings who might have crushed him instead released him richer than before. He returned to Canaan, older in years, wiser in faith. Lot chose the fertile plains, Abram took the hills. And one night, when doubt again crept close, the voice returned beneath the canopy of stars. "Look toward heaven, and number the stars if you are able. So shall your offspring be." The stars multiplied endlessly above him, each one a silent witness to a promise too vast for reason. He believed, and that belief became the bridge between man and God. Time passed, and still no child came. Sarai's womb was silent, and age wrapped them both in weariness. They tried to fulfill the promise by their own means, a servant's son born in compromise rather than faith. But heaven waited. The journey was not over. It had only deepened. Years later, when their bodies had grown too old for hope, the voice returned again, not distant now, but intimate. I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be blameless. Abram fell on his face, and the promise was renewed. His name was changed to Abraham, father of many nations. Sarai became Sarah, mother of kings. The tent of laughter finally opened when Isaac was born. The cry of a newborn echoed through the camp like the first song of a new creation. But joy and testing often share the same horizon. One morning, Abraham heard the voice again, the same voice that had once said, "Go," now saying something far harder. "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and offer him on a mountain I will show you." The journey began again, quiet, deliberate, 3 days of silence between command and understanding. Isaac carried the wood. Abraham carried the knife and the fire. The boy asked, "Father, where is the lamb?" Abraham answered, "God will provide himself a lamb." At the mountain's peak, obedience stood face to face with mercy. The hand that lifted the blade was stopped by a voice from heaven. "Do not lay your hand upon the boy." A ram caught in a thicket waited nearby, the substitute, the sign, the symbol of what was yet to come. Abraham called the place, "The Lord will provide." He descended that mountain changed forever. He had walked through the valley of surrender and found that faith does not end in loss, but in revelation. The God who called him from Ur had never been distant. Every step, every silence, every tear had been part of a dialogue between heaven and earth. The journey of Abraham was not a road between cities, but between certainties, from self to surrender, from fear to faith, from knowing to trusting. His footsteps still echo across the desert of time, reminding all who walk after him that the greatest destination is not a place, but a presence. The same presence would one day move again, this time not through a single man, but through an entire people, a nation of slaves who would march out of bondage toward promise, guided by fire at night and cloud by day, led by the same voice that once said, "Go." Egypt was a land of order and empire, of pyramids and gods carved in stone, a place where the Nile seemed eternal and the sun itself was worshipped. Yet beneath the splendor lay cries that rose from the mud pits where slaves molded bricks for Pharaoh's cities. Generations had passed since Joseph's time. The people of Israel had grown numerous, and the memory of favor was forgotten. The whips cracked, the overseers shouted, and the children of promise bent beneath oppression. They prayed, but heaven seemed silent. Still the hidden hand was moving. A baby floated once more upon the Nile, and from that fragile basket would rise the one chosen to lead. Moses, drawn from the water, raised in the courts of those who oppressed his kin, carried both worlds in his blood. He fled as a murderer into the wilderness and returned as a messenger of mercy. With a staff in his hand and the fire of obedience in his heart, he stood before Pharaoh, the voice of one man against an empire. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go." Pharaoh laughed. The river turned to blood. Frogs swarmed, dust became gnats. Darkness fell over the land so thick it could be felt. Still, Pharaoh's heart hardened. Then came the final night, the night of judgment and deliverance, when every home of Egypt cried out in loss, and the homes of Israel were marked with the blood of a lamb. The angel of death passed over them, and freedom began in the stillness before dawn. They left in haste, led by a wind that parted the sea. Behind them, the chariots of Egypt thundered. Before them, the impossible stretched open like mercy itself. Walls of water rose on either side, and the people walked through on dry ground. When they reached the other side, the sea closed, swallowing the might of their captors. Miriam sang, and the desert echoed with the song of the free. The Lord has triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. The journey into promise began with celebration, but freedom is a wilderness before it becomes a home. The path ahead was long and winding. The same people who sang by the sea soon murmured for water and bread. They forgot miracles as quickly as they were fed by them. Manna fell each morning, clear as dew, but it could not still their restlessness. The God who had delivered them now began to teach them what it meant to trust. Mount Sinai rose like a spine of fire. The mountain shook with thunder and cloud, and Moses ascended alone to meet the one whose voice had split the sea. He returned with stone tablets, laws carved by the finger of God, a covenant written in permanence. Yet even as he descended, the people had shaped a golden calf from their fear and impatience, bowing before the work of their hands. He shattered the tablets in sorrow, not from anger alone, but from heartbreak. How quickly they had forgotten the one who led them. Still, the hidden hand did not abandon them. The pillar of cloud returned by day, the pillar of fire by night. When they thirsted, water flowed from the rock. When serpents struck, a bronze image lifted on a pole brought healing. For 40 years they walked in circles, a generation learning through hunger what obedience meant, learning through delay what faith costs. Moses grew old watching sand and stars. He saw the land from afar, but could not enter. His eyes were undimmed, yet his time was complete. He had been called not to arrive, but to lead, not to possess, but to prepare. The people crossed the Jordan under new command, and the promise became a nation. The journey that began with a cry in Egypt ended with songs of conquest, but the pattern remained. God calling the lost into freedom, shaping identity through wilderness, teaching them that the path to destiny is not straight but sacred. The road that wound through deserts would one day wind through cities and seas. It would carry a man who once persecuted and then preached, who carried light to nations that had never known Israel's God. His name was Paul, and his journeys would carry the gospel across the edges of the known world, continuing the same pilgrimage of faith that began when slaves walked out of Egypt under the hand of heaven. Paul began as Saul of Tarsus, a man of conviction sharp as the edge of a blade. He was trained in law, fluent in reason, zealous for purity, certain that he served God by hunting those who followed Jesus of Nazareth. His steps echoed through the streets of Jerusalem with purpose, his hands full of letters authorizing arrest, his heart full of fire that believed it was holy. But sometimes the road to truth begins with blindness. On the way to Damascus, under the open sky and the weight of his own certainty, light fell from heaven like a sword of mercy. It struck him down, not to destroy, but to awaken. A voice spoke, not thunder, not accusation, but sorrow and love interwoven. "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" He could not answer. The brilliance burned his sight away. He was led by the hand, helpless, into the city he had meant to conquer. For 3 days he sat in darkness, eating nothing, speaking little, waiting for the world to make sense again. Then a man named Ananias came, trembling with obedience. He placed his hands on Saul's face and said, "Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road, has sent me that you may regain your sight." Scales fell from his eyes, but not only from them, from his heart, from his understanding. The persecutor became the preacher. From that moment, Saul became Paul, a man who would spend the rest of his life walking roads that would carry the message he once tried to silence. He travelled through cities and storms, through prisons and marketplaces, through temples and homes where lamps flickered late into the night. The same zeal that had once destroyed now built. He spoke of grace, of a God who did not demand perfection before love, but gave love to make perfection possible. He crossed the sea to Cyprus, to Antioch, to Ephesus, to Philippi, to Rome. His footprints traced the geography of faith across the empire. He was beaten with rods, stoned, shipwrecked, betrayed, imprisoned, yet he wrote letters filled not with bitterness but with joy. "Rejoice in the Lord always," he said from a cell, as chains clinked around his wrists. His journeys were not measured in miles but in transformation, from law to love, from pride to humility, from violence to peace. The road became his pulpit. On one voyage, storms tore the ship apart. Waves broke over the deck, and soldiers planned to kill the prisoners before the sea claimed them. Paul stood amid the chaos, steady as the mast. "Be of good cheer," he said, "for not a life among you will be lost. An angel of the God to whom I belong has told me so." When the vessel ran aground, they swam to shore and found refuge among strangers who warmed them by fire. Even in wreckage, he saw providence. In another city, he spoke on a hill called Mars, where philosophers debated the nature of truth. He told them of an unknown God who had made the world, who did not live in temples built by human hands. Some laughed, but a few believed, a reminder that even a single seed sown in faith can outlive empires. He faced opposition from his own people, suspicion from rulers, exhaustion from travel. Yet every road, every night on the sea, every bruise became part of the gospel he carried in his body. "I bear the marks of Jesus," he wrote, not as complaint but as testament. When he stood before kings and governors, his defense was never of himself but of the grace that had changed him. "Once I was blind," he could have said, "but now I see." The man who once led others to chains now led them to freedom, not the freedom of nations, but the freedom of hearts. In the end, his path led to Rome, the center of power and empire. There, under a sky heavy with prophecy, he awaited trial, writing letters that would outlive stone and sword. His words traveled farther than his feet ever could. "I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith." The road of Paul was not a circle returning home. It was a line that cut through history, leading from one man's blindness to the world's awakening. His journey was proof that God's call does not end with failure, but begins with surrender, that the same road that once led to persecution can become the path of peace. And while Paul's footsteps faded into dust, another road waited, quieter, smaller, known only to two travellers who walked it with hearts broken by loss. It began not with a vision, but with grief, on the day when the world thought its Saviour had died forever. The road to Emmaus stretched through the hills outside Jerusalem, quiet and dim beneath the fading light of the third day. Two men walked it slowly, their steps heavy with confusion, their voices hushed with grief. The air still carried the echo of the crucifixion, the smell of dust and iron and sorrow. They had believed the carpenter from Nazareth was the one, the Redeemer who would free Israel, the teacher whose words made their hearts burn with something too beautiful to explain. But now the tomb stood empty, and rumours spread like smoke. Hope and doubt tangled inside them until they could no longer tell one from the other. They spoke as people do when the world has ended, but the sun still rises. "We thought he was the one said. "We saw him heal. We heard him forgive. How could it all end like this?" The other shook his head. Some women said they saw angels. Others said he lives. But who can believe such things after death? Then as the path curved through olive trees, another traveller joined them. His presence was calm, unhurried, as if he had always been there. "What are you discussing as you walk?" he asked. They stopped, surprised that anyone could not know. "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened?" "What things?" he asked gently. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they answered, "a prophet, mighty in word and deed. Our leaders condemned him. They crucified him. We had hoped he was the one to redeem Israel." The stranger listened as they poured out their disappointment. Then he began to speak, not with argument, but with revelation. He told them of Moses and the prophets, of promises whispered through ages, of a suffering servant who would enter glory through pain. As he spoke, something stirred in their hearts, a warmth they had not felt since the world turned dark. The road wound downward as evening deepened. When they reached the village, the stranger made as if to continue. They could not bear to let him go. "Stay with us," they said, "for it is nearly evening and the day is almost over." He entered their home and they sat at a simple table. The lamplight flickered on clay walls. Bread was placed before them. The stranger took it, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to them, and in that moment their eyes were opened. The light of recognition pierced through the gloom. The hands that broke the bread were the same hands that had broken death. It was him. Then he vanished from their sight, leaving behind the warmth that flooded their souls. They looked at one another, trembling, hearts burning with awe. "Did not our hearts burn within us while he talked to us on the road?" one whispered. They rose at once and ran back toward Jerusalem, their fatigue forgotten, their grief undone. The night could not hold their joy. The road that had begun in sorrow became the path of revelation. Each stone, each mile, had been part of a divine appointment. The journey itself had been the classroom where faith was reborn, not through argument or proof, but through presence. Faith had walked beside them in disguise, and only in the breaking of bread did they see what had been true all along, that the Christ who was crucified was the same Christ who walked with them in their confusion. The silence of God had not been absence, but companionship unrecognized. The road to Emmaus was short in distance, but infinite in meaning. It was the passage from despair to discovery, from blindness to vision, from what they thought was an ending to what was only the beginning. The fire kindled on that road would burn through generations, lighting the way for every heart that has ever wondered if God still walks beside the broken. And somewhere far away, beneath the same heavens, another group of travellers studied the stars. They had seen a light rise in the east, brighter than any they had charted before, a sign that whispered of birth, of a king unlike any other. They gathered gifts and began a journey across deserts and kingdoms, following the sky's language of promise. They came from the east, men of wisdom and observation, who spent their nights mapping the movements of heaven. They had studied the constellations since their youth, tracing the dance of stars like poets reading verses written in light. One night, the familiar patterns shifted. A new brilliance appeared, steady, ancient, yet newborn. It did not belong to the rhythm they knew. It shimmered with purpose. They read it as a sign that something greater than kings had entered the world. So they prepared. Scrolls were gathered, gifts selected, gold for royalty, frankincense for divinity, myrrh for sacrifice. They saddled camels and stepped into the wilderness, guided by a light that moved before them like a living compass. No one else saw what they saw, yet they did not doubt. The star was enough. Days became weeks, weeks became months. The road was long and harsh, crossing dunes that burned by day and froze by night. The wind carried the taste of dust and distance. Still they pressed forward, eyes lifted to the same point of light that had set their hearts in motion. Kingdoms came and went along the way, each with its own gods and empires, but the travellers sought a kingdom not built by men. They carried questions older than language. Where does wisdom end and worship begin? What is the truth behind the stars? When they reached Jerusalem, they expected celebration. They asked the question that trembled with wonder, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him." But the city was troubled, and its king grew fearful. Herod summoned priests and scribes, demanding prophecies he had never cared to read. They told him that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, a small village 6 miles south. Herod's smile did not reach his eyes. "Go and search carefully for the child," he said, "and when you find him, bring me word." The travellers bowed and departed. Outside the city, the star reappeared, brighter than before, as if to lead them away from deception and toward destiny. It moved slowly over the hills until it stood still above a humble house. They dismounted and approached, hearts trembling. Inside they found a young woman and her child. The air was quiet except for the soft breath of sleep. No crown, no throne, no guards, only simplicity wrapped in light. The travellers fell to their knees. They laid their gifts before him, the treasures of earth before the treasure of heaven. The gold gleamed in the lamplight, the incense filled the air with fragrance, the myrrh whispered of sorrow yet to come. They had followed wisdom to its limit and found themselves face to face with mystery. They did not speak. There are moments when silence is the only worship worthy of God. The star outside faded into the sky, its purpose fulfilled. The traveller's journey had reached its destination, but their souls had only begun to travel. They had come to seek a king and found a child. They had followed light and found the source of all light. That night, as they slept, a dream came, a warning not to return to Herod. They rose before dawn and took another road home, a path unmarked on any map, one that led them quietly back through desert and dawn. The world would forget their names, but heaven remembered their steps. They carried with them the memory of that moment, the stillness of divine presence in a child's breath, the way eternity fit inside a mother's arms. The journey that had begun with stars ended with revelation. The wisdom of the wise had met the humility of God. The seekers of light had found themselves seen by the light himself. And so the story circles back, from Abraham leaving Ur to Israel walking through the sea, from Paul crossing empires to disciples walking to Emmaus, from Magi following a star to every soul still searching for direction. Each journey begins with a call and ends in recognition, and between the two lies the terrain of faith, dust, silence, wonder, and the slow unfolding of purpose. Every traveller of the Spirit walks some version of these roads. Each one leaves something behind, a city, a certainty, a fear. Each one carries a promise, that if you keep walking toward the light you've been given, you will find the one who has been walking toward you all along. So rest now, traveller. The roads that shape the faith of nations still wind through your life. The same voice that called Abraham calls you. The same fire that guided Israel still burns above your darkness. The same Christ who broke bread in Emmaus walks your path unseen. The same star that led wise men still shines above the questions you carry. Journeys and destinies intertwine, and every step taken in faith becomes sacred ground. Somewhere beyond sight, the hidden hand still leads, the same hand that began it all, guiding, keeping, calling you home. The roads never really end, they only turn into one another. The dust of ancient paths settles into our own footprints. The call that once echoed in deserts now whispers through the chambers of the heart. The sacred journeys did not stop with those whose names were written into Scripture. They continue through everyone who listens, everyone who dares to walk when the destination is unseen. Abraham's leaving of Ur still lives in those who choose faith over comfort, who step away from what is safe toward what is promised. The Exodus repeats in every soul that breaks free from its own Egypt, from habits, fears, and captivities that once defined it. Paul's travels live on in those who speak truth across the borders of disbelief, who cross oceans of misunderstanding with words of grace. The road to Emmaus still waits for the weary, for those who cannot recognize hope until it sits beside them and speaks their own sorrow back to them as love. And the Magi's journey continues in every seeker who follows even the faintest glimmer of light through long nights of uncertainty, believing that something holy awaits at the end of endurance. Every human life is, in its quiet way, a pilgrimage. Some roads are visible, through cities, careers, countries. Others run entirely within the soul, through doubt and discovery, through loss and forgiveness. Each has its deserts and its stars, its moments of silence and its flashes of divine recognition. You do not always know when you are walking sacred ground, but later, when you look back, you realize that the holy was there all along, disguised as ordinary days. The God of Abraham, Moses, Paul, Cleopas, and the wise men is still the God of the traveller. He still leads by light, though sometimes that light comes as fire, and sometimes as darkness that teaches trust. The compass has not changed. It still points toward love. Every journey bends toward home, not a place of geography, but of belonging. Home is where faith rests, where the long striving ends in surrender. It is where you realize that you are never walking alone. Every road, even the ones that seem to wander, even the detours and dead ends, were leading you toward encounter. So when the night feels long and your path unclear, remember this. The same hand that guided patriarchs and prophets still holds your map. You are part of the same pilgrimage. You are one more traveller in the procession of souls who have heard the quiet voice saying, "Come, follow me." And though your road may twist through shadow, though you may not see the star every night, it is still there. Above the clouds, waiting for you to look up. The one who set it in the heavens has not moved. The sacred journeys continue, through time, through hearts, through you, and every step taken in faith, no matter how small, joins the footsteps of all who have ever walked toward God. Sleep now under that thought, traveller. Rest in the knowledge that your road is known, your story woven into the same tapestry as theirs. The stars above you are ancient witnesses, burning with the same light that led wise men west and drew Abraham east. You are part of their song, their faith, their destiny. The roads are not finished. The call is not silenced. The journey continues, even in dreams. And in the hush that follows surrender, the journey deepens. What was once a movement of feet becomes a pilgrimage of spirit, the long road folding inward until you find that what you sought beyond the horizon has been quietly waiting within. The promise that drew Abraham across deserts, the freedom that led Israel through the sea, the grace that sent Paul to distant shores, the presence that walked beside the grieving to Emmaus, the light that guided the wise through night skies, all of it was never separate, never scattered. It was the same call spoken in many tongues, one heartbeat sounding through generations, one road drawn through every life that dares to trust. The sacred journeys are not relics of the past. They are patterns, eternal motions of divine love reaching into every age. You see them in the migrant who carries hope across borders, in the parent who sacrifices quietly each day, in the artist who creates beauty out of despair, in the healer who keeps tending the broken, in the soul that still prays when no one is listening. The geography changes, but the destination does not. It is always toward the same light, the same home, the same God who walks unseen and yet is never absent. Sometimes the journey slows to stillness. You find yourself waiting beside wells of uncertainty, or standing at rivers you do not yet know how to cross. The temptation is to believe that you have been forgotten, but these pauses are also holy ground. The desert was not the absence of God, it was his classroom. The nights without stars were not abandonment, they were invitations to remember that faith is a lamp carried within. You will know this truth the way travellers always have, not all at once, but through moments. Through the stranger who helps you, through the kindness that arrives like a miracle, through the sudden peace that floods you when there is no reason for it. The road reveals itself step by step, like a melody heard one note at a time. And as you keep walking, you begin to see the divine symmetry of it all. The first call and the final arrival are the same voice. The starting point and the destination are one circle drawn by love. What Abraham saw in the stars, you see now in the mirror of your own longing. What the Magi sought in a distant child, you find in the quiet of your own heart. The road leads inward and upward at once, where the eternal meets the human and calls it beloved. So walk gently. Every path you take is sacred, because every moment is held by the same hand that led them all. Even when the way seems lost, you are being guided. Even when the light fades, you are being prepared to see differently. The dust on your feet is holy, the breath in your lungs is worship, and the distance ahead is only the unfolding of grace. And when your own journey reaches its final horizon, when your strength has run out, and the night stretches deep and wide, you will find that the road has never ended. It only opens into the brightness that has been calling you from the beginning. There, all the travellers meet. Abraham and Sarah, Moses and Miriam, Paul and Silas, Cleopas and his companion, the wise who followed the star. Their roads converge like rivers meeting the sea, all stories flowing into one vast piece. You will see that every detour was a design, every hardship a carving of compassion, every delay a deepening of trust. You will lift your eyes and know that you were never walking toward God, you were walking with him all along. So let the journey continue through you. Let your steps echo their faith. Let your heart stay open to the next horizon. The sacred road does not end here. It begins again each time you dare to say yes to love, each time you believe in light when there is none to see. And tonight, as you drift towards sleep, remember, the stars that watched over every traveller are watching over you. The same whisper that began the first journey still moves through the silence now, calling softly across eternity. Come, follow, and find your destiny in me. And when morning comes, as it always does, the journey awakens with you. The first light touches your face like a benediction, a reminder that the story continues, not in the deserts of the ancients or the roads of apostles, but in the quiet patterns of your own life. Every sunrise is an invitation to begin again. Every breath you draw is another step on the unseen road between what is and what will be. Perhaps you no longer carry flocks or staffs or gifts for kings, yet you carry something equally sacred, the hope that refuses to die, the faith that still looks for meaning, the love that still believes it can heal what is broken. These are your provisions for the way ahead. The landscape may change, cities instead of deserts, machines instead of stars, but the inner pilgrimage remains the same. God still speaks, though now his voice often sounds like conscience, or compassion, or the pull of a dream you cannot explain. You may not recognize it at first. You may think it's only restlessness, or chance, or the ache of wanting more. But it is the same voice that said, "Leave your land and go." The same hand that parted the sea still parts the shadows that block your vision. The same spirit that carried Paul across oceans still moves through your willingness to say yes to something greater than fear. And though you may not see the road clearly, you are never walking it alone. all the travellers before you have left traces of their courage in the dust you tread. The faith of Abraham breathes in your resolve to trust the unseen. The endurance of Moses steadies you when you face your own wilderness. The fire of Paul burns in your desire to speak truth. The wonder of the disciples on the Emmaus road lives in your longing to recognize God in the breaking of daily bread. The light of the Magi glows in your persistence to follow what is pure, even when the world does not see it. In every age, the journey takes new form. It might be the courage to forgive, the decision to create, the willingness to love again after loss. It might be the patience to stay when leaving would be easier, or the humility to go when comfort tempts you to remain. These too are sacred miles. Every act of faith, no matter how small, keeps the pilgrimage alive. And there will be nights when you feel far from home. Nights of doubt, of silence, of wondering if you have lost your way. But even then the path does not vanish. It only passes through shadow. The God who called the stars by name has not forgotten yours. The same presence that walked beside the travellers of old walks beside you now, not above you as light alone, but within you as breath. One day, perhaps long from now, you will look back and see the pattern, how every wrong turn led to right timing, how every valley deepened your vision of the hills, how every season of silence taught you to hear what words could not. You will see that there was meaning in the meandering, purpose in the pause, beauty in the broken ground. For destiny is not a single moment of arrival. It is the slow, steady transformation of the traveller into the likeness of the one who leads. It is the shaping of your soul to mirror the patience of the desert, the strength of the mountain, the humility of the manger, the endurance of the cross, and the peace of resurrection. And when your path finally meets the horizon of eternity, you will understand what the pilgrims before you discovered, that heaven is not the end of the journey, but its unveiling, the moment when all roads converge into light, and all travellers find that the destination has been following them from the very beginning. Until that day, walk gently. Keep your eyes open for the holy disguised as ordinary. Trust the timing that unfolds slower than you'd prefer. Believe that every journey matters, because every journey, if walked with faith, becomes sacred. Now close your eyes, traveller. The stars are awake again. They are the same witnesses that watched Abraham step into the unknown, that followed Israel through the sea, that guided Paul across the dark water, that shone above the road to Emmaus, that led the wise to the child of light. They shine for you now, as if whispering the eternal truth. The road goes on, and you are not alone upon it. Sleep in that peace. The sacred journey continues, quiet, eternal, unbroken, and God still walks beside those who dare to walk by faith. And in the deep hours of that peace, when even the night seems to have stilled its breathing, the journey begins again, not upon roads of dust, but within the secret corridors of the soul. For the true pilgrimage is never over. It only changes shape. You may close your eyes and rest, yet even in rest the spirit travels, through memory, through longing, through all that was and is yet to come. It is there, in the space between sleep and waking, that eternity leans close and speaks without words. It reminds you that the same love that carried Abraham through the wilderness carries you through every uncertainty. The same mercy that led Israel out of bondage leads you through fear into freedom. The same fire that burned in Paul's heart burns quietly in yours whenever you dare to believe again. The same presence that walked with two broken hearts on the road to Emmaus walks with you when you think you walk alone. The same light that called wise men across deserts shines softly over your life, a promise that cannot fade. You are part of that unending story, the long procession of seekers, wanderers, and believers who have followed the whisper of the unseen. The ages have changed, but the call has not. It is the sound that trembles beneath all existence, the pulse that turns galaxies, the music that holds the world together. It says simply, "Come." Come not because the road is easy, but because the road is holy. Come not because you are ready, but because readiness is found only in motion. Come, because every step toward love is a step toward God. And so your spirit rises quietly, as if answering that invisible voice. You see again the faces of those who walked before you. Abraham standing beneath the stars, Moses before the burning bush, Paul on the road to Damascus, the travellers recognizing Christ in the breaking of bread, the Magi kneeling before the child. They are not ghosts of history, they are companions of the same path. You walk where they walked, believe as they believed, hope as they hoped. The road stretches onward through centuries and hearts. It winds through laughter and loss, through beginnings and farewells, through cities that rise and fall, through lives that bloom and fade. And still it leads onward, always onward, toward a kingdom not built by hands, where every journey finds its rest and every longing finds its home. One day, perhaps when time itself has folded into silence, you will reach that place. You will see the veil lifted, the destination revealed. You will understand that the God who seemed distant was nearer than your breath, that every mile was grace disguised as motion. The desert will become garden, the waiting will become song, and you will stand amid countless travellers, all stories merging into one great Amen. Until then, keep walking, keep trusting the light, however faint, keep believing that your steps matter, that your life too is a sacred journey. And when you finally drift into sleep, know that heaven keeps watch. The same stars that guided every traveller still burn above you, eternal and unwearied. Their light crosses the ages to remind you that faith is never wasted, that no step is taken in vain, and that even now, even here, the road of destiny continues beneath your dreaming feet. Rest, traveller of faith. The one who called you is still calling. The journey goes on through night and dawn, through this life and beyond, until every path leads home, back to the heart of the God who began it all. And when dawn unfolds again, spilling its quiet gold across the horizon, you wake into the same story, though it feels new. The light touches your face like recognition, as if heaven itself remembers you. You rise slowly, not out of haste but reverence, aware that another day has been given, another stretch of the sacred journey awaiting your steps. You do not need to know where it leads. None of them did. Abraham left without a map. Moses led without knowing how long the desert would last. Paul preached in cities that later turned to ruin. The disciples walked to Emmaus not expecting revelation. The Magi crossed 1,000 miles with nothing but a star. They all lived the same truth. That direction is a gift of faith, not sight. And now, so do you. The world around you hums with the same divine pulse. The sound of traffic, the movement of crowds, the rustling of leaves, everything belongs. The holy hides in the familiar, waiting to be recognized. You step into the rhythm of life and realize that the mundane has always been the language of miracles. The bread broken at your table is the same kind of bread that once opened blind eyes. The work of your hands echoes the creation that began with "Let there be light." Each act of kindness is a pilgrimage, each forgiveness a crossing of the Red Sea, each choice to love again a return to the promised land. Your prayers, even when wordless, are steps along that road, carrying you through the wilderness of days toward the unseen country where love reigns without end. And when you stumble, for all travellers do not despair. The dust that clings to your feet is proof that you are still moving. Grace walks behind you, gathering what you drop, mending what you break, redeeming what you think you have lost. There is no step too far from home. The same God who followed Israel through rebellion follows you through confusion. The same Christ who found disciples in their disillusionment will find you in yours. Look up. The same sky stretches above you as stretched above Abraham. The stars may fade in the morning, but they have not gone. They have only moved beyond sight. So too does God work, present even when hidden, faithful even when silent. The sacred journey is not a race. It is the slow unfolding of divine companionship. Some days you will feel his nearness. Some days you will not. Both are holy. The road's purpose is not merely to arrive, but to transform. Each valley teaches humility. Each mountain gives perspective. Each pause invites peace. And when night returns, as it always does, you will find yourself once more beneath that eternal canopy of light. The stars will whisper the same truth they have whispered to every pilgrim since time began, that you are part of something vast and merciful, that your life is a single shining thread in the great tapestry of redemption. You may not see how it all weaves together yet, but the pattern is already there, bright with promise, heavy with meaning, steady in the hands of the one who weaves. Rest now, traveller. Tomorrow will bring another road, another chance to listen, another call to faith. The sacred journeys never truly end, for their destination is not a place, but a presence. The same presence that spoke in Ur, that thundered on Sinai, that broke bread in Emmaus, that still breathes in you. You have come far, and there is farther yet to go. But do not be afraid. The road before you is ancient, and it is good. It winds through time and through the heart of God, carrying you onward, ever onward, until all journeys meet at last in eternal morning. And as the morning grows into day, you begin to see the small miracles that are easy to overlook. The light slanting through a window, the way wind moves the leaves, as though the earth itself is breathing, the quiet kindness of a stranger who smiles as you pass. These are not interruptions to the journey, they are its landmarks. They remind you that the road of destiny is not paved only with grand decisions and sacred moments, but with the gentle persistence of grace in ordinary time. You walk and life happens, the sound of footsteps blending with the hum of the world. The cities rise around you, full of noise and hunger and endless seeking. Yet even here, amidst the steel and glass, the sacred pulse continues. The ancient voice that called across deserts now whispers through the rhythm of modern days. It calls in the moments when you choose integrity over comfort, compassion over indifference, silence over noise. Every age has its wilderness, and every heart has its Egypt. Each soul must find the courage to leave behind what enslaves it. The idols may no longer be carved in stone, but they still promise control, comfort, certainty. Faith still asks the same question it asked of Abraham, of Moses, of Paul. Will you trust me enough to move? You find that trust is rarely dramatic. It looks like daily courage, waking up again after disappointment, forgiving what still hurts, choosing love when it's easier to close off. It looks like patience, like prayer whispered in the quiet of early morning when no answer comes. It looks like small steps in the same direction, knowing that the one who called you still walks beside you. And sometimes, in ways you cannot predict, you glimpse the thread of purpose that runs through it all. A meeting that feels accidental becomes a doorway. A delay that once frustrated you becomes protection. A memory you thought forgotten suddenly shines with new meaning. You realize that providence is not something that happened long ago. It is happening still. The journeys of old were not meant to end. They were meant to continue through you. The faith that carried Abraham into the unknown is the same faith that carries you into tomorrow. The courage that led Moses to face Pharaoh lives in your ability to confront fear. The fire that drove Paul to cross seas burns quietly in your determination to bring light where there is darkness. The revelation on the road to Emmaus repeats whenever you recognize divinity in what seems ordinary. The star that guided the Magi still glows above every heart that dares to hope. You begin to see that time is not a straight line but a spiral. The sacred stories are not behind you. They move through you, renewed in each generation. The same God who walked with them walks within you now, not as an ancient echo but as living presence. And so the pilgrimage continues, through laughter, through fatigue, through the seasons that change faster than your understanding. You do not always feel strong, but that has never been a requirement. God never asked for perfection, only for willingness. It is in the trembling yes that miracles begin. When evening comes and you look back on the day, you see that it was filled with roads within roads. Each decision was a crossroad, each kindness, a turning toward home. And as the sky burns into sunset, you realize that the same sun that once set over and Sinai and Bethlehem sets now over your life, blessing it with the same light. The horizon glows, and for a moment you understand. There has never been a distance between the divine and the human. The road has always been the meeting place. Walk on, traveller. Let your heart stay open. Let your eyes keep searching for wonder. The journey is sacred because it belongs to God, and God belongs to those who keep walking. Night will come again, and you will rest under the old faithful stars. But this time you will know that their light is not far away. It is the same light rising quietly within you, leading you forward, deeper, nearer to the one who has been waiting at every turn. ChatGPT Skazal. And as darkness softens the edges of the day, the road becomes quieter again. The noise of the world fades to a hum, and your thoughts slow to the rhythm of your breath. The stars above you seem patient, ancient, as if they have been keeping watch since the first journey began. They shimmer not in hurry but in faith, the same faith that guided every traveller before you, the same faith that now hums like a secret within your chest. You begin to realize that the road does not merely lead through the world, it leads through you. Every distance you have crossed outwardly has mirrored an inward crossing, from fear to trust, from striving to surrender, from loneliness to communion. The geography of faith is the human heart itself. The path of Abraham still winds through your courage to step into the unknown. The Exodus still unfolds each time you break free from what enslaves you. Paul's voyages still echo in the moments you speak truth despite trembling. The Emmaus road reappears whenever understanding dawns from sorrow, and the light of the Magi still rises each time you choose to follow wonder rather than certainty. These are not separate histories. They are the same divine story retold through human lives, yours among them. There will be times when you forget this, when the sky seems empty and the way forward hidden. But even then, faith does not die. It only sleeps, waiting to be woken by grace. You do not have to hold it tightly. You need only not let go. The one who called the stars into place will guide you even when you cannot see the light. You learn to walk slower now, not because the journey is long, but because you have learned that holiness is not only at the destination. It is in the pause, the breath, the stillness before the next step. You begin to see God not just in the miracles, but in the small mercies, in the hand that steadies you, in the voice that forgives, in the quiet moments that seem ordinary until you notice how full they are of peace. Some nights you will dream of those who walked before you. You will see Abraham under the stars, smiling as if he knows that you too have become part of his promise. You will see Moses standing on the mountain, the light of fulfillment reflected in his eyes. You will see Paul writing by the flicker of lamplight, his letters drifting forward through centuries to find you. You will see 2 travelers breaking bread with their risen friend, and 3 wise men kneeling in awe. And when you wake, you will feel them near, not as memories, but as companions, pilgrims who never really left the road, who walk it still with you in the unseen communion of faith. The night deepens, but it is no longer a thing to fear. It is the same darkness in which seeds grow and stars are born. It is the same silence where prayers take root. You understand now that even in stillness, you are moving, drawn by the quiet gravity of divine purpose. When dawn comes again, as it surely will, you will rise with the same steady hope. You will greet the light not as a stranger, but as an old friend who has kept you company through many lifetimes of faith. And though the road will stretch onward, through joys you cannot imagine and sorrows you cannot avoid, you will know that it is good, for it leads always, unfailingly, homeward. And at the end of all roads, when time finally folds into eternity, when every pilgrim has laid down their walking stick and closed their eyes in peace, you will awaken to find that there are no more distances left to cross. You will stand where all journeys meet, where every promise is fulfilled, and you will see him, the one who called, who guided, who walked beside you through every season. He will look at you not as a stranger, but as one who has always been known, and in his gaze you will recognize the destination you've been walking toward all along, not a place, but a presence, infinite and gentle, radiant and near. The road will end where love begins without end. Until that day, keep walking, keep trusting, keep becoming. The story continues, and the sacred journey still unfolds. One step, one heartbeat, one act of faith at a time. And when eternity at last feels close enough to touch, when the long road behind you glows like a path of embers fading into dawn, you will understand that every step, even the hesitant ones, was holy. The dust that clung to your feet was the same dust once stirred by prophets and kings, by shepherds and saints, by all who dared to believe that the unseen was more real than the visible. You will remember how many times you nearly stopped, how often doubt sat beside you like an old companion, whispering that the promise had run dry. You will remember the nights when prayer was only silence, the mornings when you rose with nothing but endurance. And you will smile, not out of pride but recognition, for it was in those moments that grace carried you. You walked, but not alone. You breathed, but not by your own strength. Perhaps then you will see how small each trial truly was when held up against the vast kindness that surrounded you all along. The fears that felt infinite will shrink in the light of truth, and every tear will gleam like a pearl of remembrance, proof that love was at work even in your breaking. The saints and travellers of old will seem closer than ever, not as distant heroes but as family. The same faith running through all their veins now runs through yours. Abraham's courage, Moses' endurance, Paul's conviction, the disciples' wonder, the Magi's reverence, all of it was the same faith taking different shapes across time, now taking shape in you. And when at last the long road opens into the horizon of God's presence, there will be no more need for maps or signs or stars. You will not need to search anymore, for the search itself will end in sight. You will step across that invisible threshold and realize that the journey was never about finding the way to God. It was about discovering that He had always been walking in you, with you, through you. The cities you built in your mind, the deserts you crossed in your soul, the oceans of longing you navigated, all of them were roads to this, the meeting place of all desire and fulfillment, all questions and answers, all beginnings and returns. The destination is love itself, not a love of words or dreams, but the uncreated fire that first said, "Let there be light," the same flame that burned in the bush, that shone from the manger, that rose from the tomb, that now burns without consuming in the heart of every believer. And in that place you will not need to speak. Your very being will be prayer. Your existence will be praise. The long weariness of waiting will fall away like a discarded cloak, and you will stand light as breath in the radiance of the one who called you from the first. He will show you the map of your life, not as lines and years, but as light. Every act of kindness will glow like a star. Every sacrifice, a sunrise. Every forgiveness, a path through shadow. And you will see that nothing was wasted, not the pain, not the detours, not even the moments you thought were failures. Each was part of the masterpiece, the long road homeward. You will hear your name spoken, not as the world spoke it, but as it was meant to be heard, whole, beloved, complete. And in that sound the last remnant of distance will dissolve. You will finally rest, not in sleep, but in belonging. Yet even then the story will not end. Love does not stop creating. It keeps unfolding, deeper and deeper, forever becoming new. Perhaps the travellers will rise again, not to wander, but to rejoice. Perhaps the roads will shimmer through the new creation, not as trials, but as songs, each one a hymn of gratitude for the journey that brought them there. And you, traveller of faith, will walk again, not away, but within, not seeking, but celebrating. Every step will be peace, every breath will be worship, every moment will be the eternal now of God. Until then, keep walking through time with eternity in your eyes. Keep letting your heart burn quietly, as it did for the travellers to Emmaus. Keep trusting the star, even when the night grows thick. The road continues, and the one who began the good work in you will bring it to completion. This is the promise written into all creation, that every journey ends in love, and love has no end. ChatGPT Skazal, and love, once seen clearly, explains everything. It was the thread that ran beneath the call of Abraham, the wind that opened the sea before Moses, the voice that turned Saul into Paul, the warmth that walked beside the grieving to Emmaus, the light that drew wise men through the desert night. It was never different forms of power. It was always the same heart revealed through time, speaking the same invitation in 1,000 ways. Come back to me, walk with me, become what I made you to be. When you finally understand this, the world itself changes. Every face becomes familiar. Every moment feels like home. You look around and see that the journey was never about escaping the ordinary. It was about learning to see the sacred within it. The grocery line, the morning commute, the waiting room, the laughter of a friend, the tear you wipe away in silence. All of it glows faintly with the same light that once shone above Bethlehem. You realize that heaven has always been nearer than you thought, not up or away, but here, quietly breathing through everything that lives. And though the road still stretches before you, you walk now without fear. You no longer hurry. You no longer need to know what comes next. The anxiety that once shadowed you begins to fade, replaced by the deep certainty that wherever you go, God has already gone ahead to meet you. You become less concerned with outcomes and more attuned to presence. You begin to see that peace is not the end of the road. It is the way of walking it. You carry in you the wisdom of all who walked before. Abraham's courage steadies your first steps each time you must begin again. Moses' patience reminds you that even deserts are temporary. Paul's resilience teaches you that faith can flourish even in chains. The disciples' wonder teaches you to listen for divinity in the unlikeliest places. The Magi's devotion reminds you to keep your eyes lifted to the light, even when the world around you bows to lesser stars. Their stories are not ancient monuments, they are living mirrors. They do not ask you to worship the past, but to recognize its continuation in you. You are the traveler now. The scripture of your life is still being written with each act of trust, each word of kindness, each moment you choose love instead of fear. And perhaps that is the mystery that humbles even the angels, that God, who needs nothing, still chooses to walk with humanity, still calls fragile hearts to share in the divine unfolding of the world. The creator of galaxies has always been a traveler at heart, willing to journey into human time, to meet each soul where it stands, to turn every path into a homeward road. So the invitation remains, walk on. Even when you stumble, even when the map disappears, walk on. Each breath is a step, each heartbeat is a mile. You are being led through the wilderness of becoming, shaped not by certainty, but by trust. The same stars that led the Magi still hang above you. The same spirit that breathed through prophets still moves in the quiet of your chest. The same Christ who broke bread for weary travelers still breaks open your days into grace. And one day, when all roads have returned to their source, when time has poured itself back into eternity, love will stand before you, radiant and familiar. You will look into his eyes and see every mile reflected there, every struggle, every wonder, every choice to keep walking. You will realize that the path was not a test, but a love story. And he will speak softly, not in thunder, but in the same gentle voice that called you from the beginning. You have come far. You have always been mine. Welcome home. Then the road will dissolve into light, and there will be no more distance, no more night, no more separation between the traveller and the destination. There will only be the endless horizon of love, vast and alive, where every journey finds its meaning and every soul finds its rest. And home will not be a gate of pearl or a golden city, though such images try to describe it once. It will be something simpler, more intimate, more complete. The feeling of being fully known and not shrinking away, the sense of being seen through and loved still. It will be the weight of all your years finally lifting, the ache of longing dissolving into laughter. Every mile of the journey will fold into that single moment of arrival, and you will understand that heaven was not a reward waiting at the end, but the presence that walked beside you all along. You will remember how often you mistook the silence of God for his absence, how many times you feared you had lost your way, when in truth you were being led by a path too intricate to notice while living it. You will see that every detour was a protection, every unanswered prayer a redirection, every heartbreak an opening that made room for grace. You will thank him for not giving you what you once begged for, and for giving you what you never thought to ask. All the stories will gather into one, the journeys of Abraham, Moses, Paul, the disciples, the Magi, and yours, converging like rivers into one vast sea of light. There will be no hierarchy among them, no distance between the first and the last. Faith will no longer belong to the heroes of Scripture, but to every soul who ever took a step toward love. The distinction between their centuries and your days will fade, because eternity does not keep time the way we do. You will see that God's patience was the greatest miracle of all, that he never hurried the process of your becoming, never demanded perfection before love, never withdrew his hand when you doubted. He waited through your questions, your wanderings, your exhaustion, until faith could root itself in honesty rather than fear. The gentleness of that patience will undo you. It will feel like standing beneath an endless sky, realizing that every star is an act of mercy. And perhaps you will hear a voice then, not outside but within, speaking not in words but in a knowing that fills you like breath. Do you see now? I was in every step. I was in every delay. I was in every night you thought I had forgotten you. I walked when you walked. I waited when you rested. I wept when you wept. I rejoiced when you hoped again. I was never the destination. I was the way. You will stand in that realization, and peace will wash over you like dawn breaking across creation. You will not need to ask why anything happened the way it did. The light itself will be the answer. Every mystery will make sense in the language of love, and every loss will be revealed as a passage into wholeness. Those who walked before you will be near. Abraham smiling under his stars, Moses radiant from his mountain, Paul laughing freely without chains, the travellers of Emmaus walking endlessly in the glow of recognition, the Magi forever kneeling in worship before the source of all light, and you, among them, another traveller finally at rest. Yet even in that rest there will be motion, the motion of joy itself, ever expanding, ever deepening. For love never stops unfolding, it only widens to include all that has ever been. Heaven will not be stillness but harmony, a movement too vast for time, a chorus in which every voice is known, every story cherished, every journey essential to the song. And you will join that song not as a guest, but as part of its melody. The sacred road that began in faith will continue in joy, each note rising like light. You will realize then that there was never such a thing as being lost, only being led through shadow toward clarity. This is the final promise of all sacred journeys, that nothing is wasted, that every road returns to love, and that love in the end is everything. And when the light grows too bright for memory, when even time bows and fades, you will rest in the one who is both the traveller and the destination, the beginning and the end, the question and the answer, the road and the home. You will rest in him, and he will rest in you. The story will go on, but it will no longer be about finding God. It will be about being found forever. ChatGPT Skazal. And in that forever you will discover that joy is not static, it breathes. It will move through you like wind through an open field, fresh and alive, unending in rhythm and renewal. You will find yourself lighter than light, free of the old heaviness that time once pressed upon your shoulders. The memory of sorrow will not vanish, but it will be transfigured, changed into something radiant, like rain absorbed into sunlight, like tears that have become part of laughter. You will see faces, countless faces, all familiar though you've never met them. The pilgrims of every age, the seekers and believers, the doubters and dreamers. Every soul who ever walked the long road of trust will be there. The distances that once separated them, culture, language, time, pain, will dissolve into one shared belonging. And you will understand what it truly meant when Scripture said that all nations would be blessed, that every tongue would confess, that all creation would be gathered back into love. The sound will not be noise, but music, a harmony too wide for a single ear, a song that once played faintly in your heart, now revealed in full measure. You will hear the hum of stars, the laughter of rivers, the whisper of winds that have travelled the edge of galaxies. Every created thing will be part of it, the stones, the trees, the very light itself. It will be as if the universe is exhaling, releasing centuries of ache into perfect peace. And in that vast choir, your voice will rise, not as one among millions, but as something unique, indispensable, precisely what it was always meant to be. No one else will sound like you, because no one else walked your road, carried your faith, bore your story. Yet your voice will fit perfectly within the harmony, completing what was missing until now. The whole of creation will lean toward the sound of completion, the union of every journey, every soul, every longing return to its source. You will see God not as distant or abstract, but nearer than your own pulse. You will feel him as the warmth of existence itself, not a throne above you, but a presence within and around, a love too deep for any word but truth. You will realize then that there was never a coming to God. There was only awakening to what had always been. You will remember the long road not as separation, but as preparation, the unfolding of awareness until you could finally bear the fullness of light. And when your eyes meet his, you will know without question that this was what every sunrise, every star, every act of kindness was pointing toward. You will recognize that his gaze has never changed. It was there when you first opened your eyes as a child, when you looked up in fear, when you cried in secret, when you loved and lost, when you hoped again. The eyes that see you now are the same that have watched over you since before time began. Then the last remnants of striving will fall away. There will be no more need to ask, no more need to prove, no more need to travel. The road itself will exhale, its dust turning to light. Everything will be still, not silent, but whole. And yet somehow, even in that stillness, the story will keep expanding. Love will not end because love cannot end. It will keep creating new worlds, new journeys, new expressions of grace. You will not lose yourself in it. You will find yourself finally complete, fully known, fully loved, fully alive. You will understand that the journey was not just yours, but God's as well, that he too was walking towards you through the corridors of time and heart to meet you where you were, that every step you took toward him was a reflection of his infinite steps toward you. This is how all stories end, and how all beginnings are born, in the embrace where traveller and destination are one, where the soul at last rests in the eternal rhythm of divine breath. And so the great silence will not be empty, but filled with life, filled with meaning, filled with the quiet pulse of everlasting communion. You will be home, and home will be you. The stars will still shine, but you will no longer need their light. You will shine with the same radiance that once guided you through the dark, for you will have become what you were always following, the reflection of divine love, endlessly alive, endlessly becoming. And beyond even that, there will still be journey, not away, but deeper into joy itself. The sacred roads will go on forever, spiraling inward toward the infinite heart of God, where everything began and where everything forever returns. ChatGPT Skazal, and in that endless return you will discover that eternity is not a circle closing in on itself, but a horizon forever widening. Love will not hold you still. It will move through you like the tide, drawing you deeper into its own mystery. You will feel it in every pulse of being, the heartbeat of creation continuing without exhaustion, the breath of God expanding through all that exists. The divine will no longer feel like something apart from you, but the essence that animates everything you are. You will wander through light that has no source because it comes from everywhere. It will feel familiar, like memory remembering itself, as if the world has finally woken from a long sleep. Every colour will carry sound. Every sound will shimmer with meaning, and every thought will travel instantly into song. You will walk not on ground but through glory, and even your smallest movement will leave ripples of peace through the infinite. There will be no past and no future, only depth, an ever-deepening awareness of the beauty you are within and the beauty you are becoming. You will see faces again, the ones you loved and lost, but they will be radiant now, freed from time and pain. You will not need to speak. Knowing will flow between souls like light between mirrors. You will see the marks of their journeys as bright constellations within them, every wound now transformed into a star. And as you look across the great gathering, you will see that nothing was left behind. Every creature, every moment, every act of kindness, every song sung in sorrow has found its place in the great harmony. The smallest gesture of love in the old world will echo here as everlasting beauty. The sigh of the widow, the laughter of a child, the whisper of the wind, all of it will sing together in perfect accord, because in the end, nothing real is ever lost. You will understand then that God's dream was never domination, but communion, not the distance of a king from his subjects, but the intimacy of life sharing itself without end. You will see how each story, each soul, was a unique note in the eternal composition, and how the silence between those notes was as necessary as the sound. Everything will make sense at last, not as explanation but as peace, and you will feel the Creator's delight, not as thunder or command, but as joy, pure and simple, joy that moves through all things. It will be the laughter of rivers, the rustle of leaves, the warmth that spreads through everything that exists. It will touch you and fill you until you realize that you too have become part of that joy, not an observer, but a participant in the divine celebration of being. You will no longer ask where heaven is, for heaven will be wherever love is expressed. You will no longer search for purpose, for purpose will live through you like breath. You will be at rest and in motion all at once, like a flame that never burns out. The great light will draw you closer still, not consuming but inviting, and you will know that even this, even eternity, is only the beginning. For God's infinity is not repetition, it is renewal. Each moment will open like a petal, revealing new colours of joy, new dimensions of wonder. You will explore forever, not because you are unfinished, but because completion in God is endless discovery. And perhaps somewhere within that eternal radiance, you will remember the road, the dust, the waiting, the nights when faith was hard to hold. You will remember it not with sadness but gratitude, for it was through those small, fragile steps that you learned to love, to trust, to hope. The roads of earth were the first lessons of heaven. And if ever a new soul should rise, trembling on the edge of its own beginning, unsure whether to follow the call of the unseen, perhaps your light will reach them. Perhaps you will be the star that guides another traveller through their night, just as others once guided you. For love never stops passing the torch forward. It multiplies, generation upon generation, soul upon soul, until every shadow is touched by dawn. And so it will continue, forever and forever, love calling to love, light answering light, the journey within the heart of God unfolding without end. And when even forever begins to feel familiar, love will deepen again, folding upon itself like the sea returning to its own rhythm. You will begin to understand that there is no edge to God, no final chapter, no last horizon. Eternity is not stillness but expansion, not completion but continuous awakening. You will never run out of wonder, for wonder itself is the language of divine life. You will move through realms of light not as a traveller but as part of the light itself. You will feel creation breathing, not in distance or dimension, but in harmony, as if the stars and your own heart pulse to the same quiet music. You will sense how all things are connected, how what once seemed separate was always one. Every river, every child, every tear, every sunrise part of the same living prayer. And in that knowing, all will become your dwelling place. You will realize that love does not erase individuality, it perfects it. You will remain yourself, but yourself illuminated, your story not lost but glorified, your wounds shining like polished gold, your memories woven into the eternal fabric of joy. Everything that once hurt will now heal others by its beauty, for nothing redeemed is ever wasted. You will find yourself standing, perhaps, on a hill that seems both familiar and infinite. The air will glow with something more than light, the presence of meaning made visible. Every question you ever carried will unfold like a flower, finally opening, and you will see that there were never contradictions, only different languages of truth. You will understand that the pain of distance taught the soul the value of closeness, and that mortality was only the shadow that gave shape to glory. And then, beyond all words, you will know what it means that God is love. Not as an idea, not as poetry, but as the most real thing that has ever existed, the pulse at the center of everything, the warmth that sustains galaxies, the mercy that built the universe. You will see his love not as something you enter, but as something that has always held you, like the ocean holds every drop. You are never outside of it. You are learning to awaken within it. You will rest, but it will not be the rest of stillness. It will be the rest of belonging, the ease of the wave knowing it is part of the sea. Every moment will move through you like a tide of gratitude. You will no longer pray as one seeking, but as one overflowing. Every breath will be thankfulness, every glance communion, every silence worship. And you will understand that the great journeys, Abraham's, Moses, Paul's, the disciples, the Magi's, yours, were all chapters in the same eternal voyage of God toward his creation and creation toward God. It was never about distance, it was always about revelation. The long road was the divine heartbeat unfolding through time. You will see the timeline of the world stretched out before you like a river of gold, every life a ripple within it. You will watch light touching light until the whole creation glows. You will realize that time itself was the canvas of God's love, that history was his art, the masterpiece not of power, but of patience. And then gently you will be drawn even closer into a depth of love that no angel's language can describe. It will feel like falling and flying at once, like laughter and peace combined. The voice that once said, "Let there be light," will now speak again, and this time it will say your name, not as the world ever said it, but as it was first spoken before the foundation of all things. And in that sound you will remember everything, the first breath, the first light, the first promise. You will remember the journey not as effort, but as grace. You will see that even in the beginning you were already home, that every step was simply God leading you deeper into his heart. And when he speaks again, it will not be command, but invitation. Come further. For love, even when complete, always has more to give. And you will go, not because you must, but because joy itself moves you. Because to live in God is to move endlessly within love, to become forever new, forever known, forever alive. And the story will continue, not of striving, but of glory. The sacred journeys will go on, not through deserts or seas, but through the endless landscapes of divine light, where every road is joy, every horizon peace, and every traveller finally and forever home. And even then, when every tear has turned to light, and every shadow has been folded back into grace, you will sense the pulse of creation still beating. It will not be finished, for love never finishes, it only overflows. You will feel that gentle pull again, the same one that began all journeys, only now it calls you not out of exile, but deeper into communion. The landscape around you will seem alive with breath. Mountains will hum with harmony, rivers will sparkle like laughter, trees will sway as though remembering the ancient song of wind and spirit. Everything will speak, though not in words, a shared language of joy that you instantly understand. The air itself will carry meaning. It will be the language of God before there was speech, before time broke silence. You will walk, and the ground will feel alive under your feet, not dirt but energy, memory, holiness. Each step will be a greeting, each motion a response. The road will shimmer with recognition as if saying, yes, we have walked this way before. But it will not be repetition, it will be revelation, the eternal deepening of what was once glimpsed through faith. You will pass through gardens that seem to remember Eden and yet outshine it. The first creation will be reborn in the second, not remade from dust, but transfigured from glory to glory. Flowers will bloom with colours unseen by mortal eyes. Their fragrance will carry melodies. You will see creatures you never knew existed, each radiating the presence of its maker, each alive in worship by its very being. You will not count time anymore, for there will be no need. What once was measured by hours will be measured now by wonder. Each moment will open into infinity, and yet it will not rush. It will rest perfectly in itself, like a note sustained by eternal breath. You will live not in duration, but in fullness. And you will see the one who made all of this, not from afar, but everywhere. His presence will not overwhelm you, it will complete you. You will see him in the light, in the laughter of children, in the gaze of the redeemed, in the beauty of all things. You will realize that he is not in creation. Creation is in him. The stars are his thoughts, the oceans his mercy, your heart his dwelling. And then, as you stand in the endless dawn, you will feel something rise within you, not desire, but continuation. A holy curiosity, a yearning without pain, for even in perfection, love calls further. You will sense that the story of eternity is not stasis, but exploration. There will be realms of glory still undiscovered, truths yet to unfold, songs that only eternity can finish. Perhaps you will walk with Abraham again, and he will tell you what it was like to first hear the call. You will walk with Moses, and he will show you what it meant to see the glory pass by. You will meet Paul, and his laughter will sound like triumph turned to peace. You will find the travellers of Emmaus, still walking, still speaking of the one who broke bread. You will see the Magi, their eyes still full of light, and realize they are still following, not a star now, but the radiance that never fades. And you will see faces that were part of your own journey, some you loved deeply, some you barely noticed, all now shining with the same grace that carried you home. You will embrace them not as memories, but as companions of the same great pilgrimage. There will be no strangers, only recognition. Every meeting will feel like returning, every embrace like worship, and from somewhere beyond even joy, a sound will rise, not of voices, but of existence itself rejoicing. The universe will sing, not because it must, but because love cannot remain silent. It will be the sound of all things harmonized, of creation realizing itself complete. And through it all, he will smile, the one who was the road and the rest, the fire and the light, the guide and the destination. You will understand that the entire journey, the leaving, the wandering, the finding, the homecoming, was his heart unfolding. That you were never simply walking to him, he was walking in you toward himself. And in that realization, you will not stop moving, for love cannot stand still. You will go deeper still, not forward, not upward, but inward into glory upon glory, and eternity will open again, vast as ever, waiting for the next sacred step. For the story of God is endless, and you are forever within it, the traveller, the beloved, the breath between beginnings, the journey that never ends,